Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing something a little different. I'm going to be showing you guys one of my DIYs. These are going to be some resin coasters with flowers in them. So if you take a look, I'm just going to go through some of the supplies that I bought, everything that you would need in order to make these coasters. First up, we have the coaster molds. I have two of them. They're not that deep, they're not that big. They're actually like a perfect coaster size. Next, we have the resin. So the resin, it's in two parts. And you have to mix these up equally in both half and half parts for however much you want. They come together when you buy them. This is my stick and my little cups that I use to mix it in. So I originally bought these as nail decorations. Yeah, crazy. They were nail decorations, but I like ripping up the foil and putting them in the resin. Next up, we have some pressed flowers. So they're real flowers and they've been dehydrated and pressed. And I'll just gently place the ones that I want into the resin once I pour a little bit. And tweezers. You're gonna need tweezers because they're really delicate. And lastly, we have the fire, the fuel. What is it called? The little handheld fire that they make for creme brulee. I forgot what that thing called, but this is the little fire. So I'm gonna put my cups here, and I'm just going to pre-mix the. Don't worry about that. Stay up, cups. So I'm going to pre-mix the resin. I usually eyeball it and it's pretty good from that. I'll pour one in one cup and the other in another cup and just pour them together, and it's usually about right. Okay, so I will now be pouring the resin into the cups. It doesn't matter which one you do first, just as long as they're equal and you mix them together really well. So that's the first part, and here is the second part. I just eyeball it. They look pretty equal to me. Now I will filled in, you are going to want to get your gas can or the gas lighter, and you're going to want to spray away any bubbles that are in the resin. So once you apply the fire to it, the heat is going to make the bubbles in it rise and then pop. That way there's no bubbles in it once it actually dries. Once you're done with that, you are going to take your tweezers and you are going to pick out whichever flowers that you want to be in the coaster. And just a tip, when you put the flowers in them, put them in upside down. So when you actually take the coaster out of the mold, the flowers will be right side up. Like so. Flip them, that's what I was saying. And do whatever designs you like or use whatever flowers it is you ordered. I'm going for more of a fall type of vibe, so I'm going to be using the orange and the yellow and the gold flakes. And just another tip, when you are placing the flowers into the resin, you don't want to push the flowers down. Just let them drop naturally, because you don't want the flower to be accidentally exposed or a really thin layer between the resin and the flower. Okay, I am just finishing up the flowers, and then I'm going to move on to the gold flakes. Now my gold isn't flaked up, it isn't in flakes, it's just like a foil, like a small piece of foil. So I'm actually just going to be tearing mine apart as I go along. It's super thin, so it's really easy to tear, but it is also really easy to get stuck to your tweezers. So word of advice is, if you can, just get the foil that's already torn and not foil sheets. Okay, now that we are done placing the foil and the flowers in the resin mold, we are going to pour the rest of the resin over what we did just to finish up and seal it. As you can see, some of the things start to move around when you pour the rest of the resin in it. It's okay, just tap it gently back over, try to slide it over very gently. And try to get the resin to cover everything inside of the mold. So make sure everything is covered. Make sure the flowers are completely sealed up. Make sure the gold flakes are completely underneath the resin. What I'm doing is I'm basically taking some from the sides and I'm gently tapping it onto the parts that are overexposed. Now I'm going to use the torch gun again, get out the rest of those bubbles. And we are done. So I'm going to set that one to the side and I am going to move on to the next one. Alright, you guys, I left the molds out in the sun to dry. You can dry them under a nail light, like one of the lights used to cure your nails, but I used the natural sunlight. It dried perfectly well, and now I will take them out very, very gently. You don't want them to bend or snap or break or anything like that. So just take your time and take off the edges before you actually try to pull the whole thing off. And as you can see, they came out pretty good. There are no bubbles in them. They're pretty clear. And so one thing that you got to be mindful of is when you pour the resin into the molds, make sure it's even. Just make sure that it's even all around, just so that you'll have two the same sizes. So like mine is a little thin in some spots and thicker in some edges, just because I didn't ensure that I poured the same amount. But just from experience, just make sure you pour it all the way up to the tip. Some people like to sand the bottom of their molds, or I'm sorry, sand the bottom of their coasters and just sand it with various types of sanding paper. I would just leave mine as is, just because I don't want to do all that. So, as you can see, they are clear and they're so cute with the little flowers. I mean, I'm kind of proud of myself. This was like my first time doing these, so I think they came out pretty good. Voila! Bye, you guys. Thank you for joining me.